"If you don't believe me," asked Jerry. I promised her it would be our first topic of conversation the next time we were together, and listened as she laughed all the way down the hall. It made me grin the rest of the day, and I wasn't nearly as serious as I was before. The other ladies noticed, and Misty must have blabbed, because every time I got maudlin or angry, one or the other would say something that cheered me up. I knew it was out of control when our 60-year-old receptionist told me she was from a different generation, and how did I feel about shag carpet? Charlie was getting desperate, climbing the walls, alone, no lover, no husband, no outlets at all except lunches with her friends. And after I almost destroyed the marriage of her best friend by telling her husband all about his wife letting Charlie use their home to continue the affair, none of them would even talk about her situation, and damn sure wouldn't be aiding and abetting. The husband had talked, and her remaining friends were on pretty thin ice as far as Charlie was concerned. A month later, I answered the door to see Charlie on her knees, begging me to just talk to her. I considered about 20 really cruel responses before I opened the door wider and walked back into the living room. She followed a few seconds later, looking around cautiously, like she was afraid of an ambush. "Beer?" She nodded. So I got a glass and poured one for her. She tasted it and gave the glass a closer look. "What is this?" "It's a true Bock imported. If you don't like it, I have several more varieties you might find interesting." "Have you turned into a lush?" I looked at my watch. 3.5 minutes before she managed to piss me off. "No, I haven't turned into a lush. I've decided instead of quantity, to go for quality. These and sipping beers, not guzzling beers. It usually takes me about 2 weeks to go through a 12-pack. I'm afraid to say it's rubbed off on the girls. If you were to look into my fridge, you would see craft sodas, root beers, and exotic fruits flavors being the most popular. What about you? Been hitting the wine harder?" I knew from the cameras she was knocking almost a bottle a night out, far more than she drank when we lived together. She blushed, surprising me by being honest. "Yes, I have. I find it helps me get through the lonely nights. But I realized it, and I have been cutting back." "Why would you be lonely? Loverboy is officially semi-single. Why not go out and play? Scratch the itch, as it were." She looked appalled. "Wouldn't that bother you?" "No more than when you did it while we were still living together. At least you're legally separated and he's in the process of divorce, so the stigma will be considerably less." She looked down, in shame, I hoped. "We haven't been together in a long while. To be honest, the thrill is gone. The sex, especially since we had to sneak around to have it, was pretty good. I think now it was more the rush of a dirty little secret than the actual act. I know the few times after you found out, it wasn't nearly as satisfying. I knew Bob was long gone, taking a job in a small county half a state away. The pay was about 2/3 of what he made here, and his child support was based on his old salary. Bet it was a strain, making those payments every week. If she wanted to play, one of them would have to drive 3 hours, minimum. Besides, she said, I know by now you know a lot more than you admit, so I'm sure you know he's out of the picture. To be honest, the thought of being with him again kind of turns my stomach. If I had it to do over again, I wouldn't give him the time of day. He was nowhere near worth what he cost me. He didn't cost you a thing, Charlie. You racked up that bill when you threw him in my face and threatened to take everything away from me if I didn't agree to let you continue. She was snuffling now, little sobs that threatened to turn bigger. For some reason it pissed me off. Stop it, Charlie. All the crying in the world isn't going to fix this. You must have come down here for a reason. What do you want? She raised her head, a surprisingly determined look on her face. I want one thing. You. I want you back. I want you to snuggle me and nibble my ear like you used to and tell me everything will be just fine. I want you and the girls with me, all wrapped up in quilts on that big couch, eating popcorn and making fun of the movie we're watching, until they fall asleep, each holding on to one of us. I want to feel loved again, not empty and hollow, just marking days. I know my promises mean nothing to you now, but I'm begging you to give me a chance, to start fresh, to make it up to you. That little speech must have taken a lot out of her. She sighed, getting up. Think about it for a while. I don't expect an answer right now. Before I go, will you hug me, just for a second? Charlie looked lost and miserable, so I wrapped her up, letting her cry on my shoulder for a few minutes. She finally pulled back, thanked me, and left. I sat on the couch for a long time, until Marissa came in and asked where dinner was. I pointed at the menus posted on the corkboard beside the refrigerator. Pick. She must have called Darcy, because she came down and debated over Chinese, fried chicken, pizza, or burgers before deciding on Creole. You can call your mom, see if she wants to join us. That is, if you want to. Darcy ran back upstairs, and 10 minutes later was back, with Charlie on her heels. They debated until I reminded them if they didn't call soon it would be too late. They opted to pick it up and took off, coming back with a movie they had rented, asking if we could watch it in the man cave after dinner. I ate my black and blue salad, savoring the blend of blackened steak and blue cheese crumbles, watching them chatter and taste off every plate, including mine. Darcy had gotten brave and ordered gator bites, and they weren't bad. Sated, we trooped out to the building and all sat on the leather couch, both kids between us like old times. They had chosen a romance, and I made fun of it until Darcy poked me in the ribs, telling me to be quiet so they could enjoy it. Neither girl saw the ending until the next day, because they both fell asleep snuggled to us. I looked over to see Charlie crying, softly, trying not to wake Marissa. We kissed them awake, and I sent them home with their mother, saying I wanted to stay there for a little. All, even Charlie, gave me a good-night kiss as they left. I sat there a long time, thinking, could I ever trust her again? What would I do if I did and the bitch came out in her again? Could my heart take another hit like that? Sleep was a long time coming, and they found me, still on the couch in the man cave, the next morning. I went in and showered while they finished the movie. I have to admit, Charlie really tried. She cooked my favorite meals, didn't complain when I didn't always accept her invitations. The relationship with the girls got stronger, especially when school rolled around again and she took them shopping. I always gave Marissa one of my cards, and Charlie, true to form, wore it out, even buying herself an outfit or two. I didn't complain. It was nowhere near what she used to spend. She still had her allowance and one card, and was learning to live on the budget I had given her. She surprised us all when she came to me, asking a favor. I've been thinking about my life a lot, Jack. I think I'll take your advice, and either get a job or find something worthwhile to volunteer for. If I do, will you watch the girls if I need you? I gave her a nice hug and praised her. She had also been going to the gym, and it was starting to show. She was getting her pre-soccer mom shape back. I always complimented her on her progress, even gave her extra money for workout gear and a few new outfits. We were back to sleeping together, starting when we watched a pretty risque movie one night accompanied by too much wine. It was good. Sex with Charlie was always good, especially when she had a little too much and her inhibitions were down. We woke up a few hours later cuddled together, glad the girls were spending the night with friends, and proceeded to pound the shit out of each other. I woke to her giving me a BJ, and she refused to stop until I blasted down her throat. She used to hate this, but then again, she used to not screw other men. I'm afraid my insecurities made me comment on it. She flamed bright red. I still don't, Jack. This is the first time, and I did it as a thank you for last night and the fact that we've been getting along better. I felt like a jerk and apologized, thanking her for her gift. She smiled, and then ran into the bathroom to brush her teeth. Where do we go from here? She was genuinely surprised at my question. As far as you want to, but from now on, if either of us get an urge, I want the other to scratch it. I haven't been with anyone but you for months. Odd, after I cheated, I became faithful. The thought of another man touching me turns my stomach. I believed her, mostly because I had access to her movements almost constantly. If she was fooling around, she was being damn good at hiding it. 2 months went by, and we shared a bed about once a week, each sneaking to the other's house after the kids were down. I'm sure they knew. They weren't babies anymore, and they both spent the night with one or the other, instead of one usually at the other house. Encouragement, I suspect. Charlie got a volunteer position for one of the major charities, helping prepare events from fun runs to formal balls and dinners. The first 2 or 3 months, it was mostly daytime activities. Weekends usually. A lot of times one girl or the other would go with her, sometimes both. Sometimes I went along, which seemed to please her. As cooler weather came, they moved to more indoor venues, events held mostly at night. I went with her to a few, admiring her new form in the nice gowns I had bought her, watching her get hit on and shooting them down, often pointing me out. It was fun, and I did network a little, but it took too much out of me to do it on a regular basis and still run my company, so I cut down to about 1 out of 3. Charlie acted disappointed until I asked how she would like it if I got her up early and dragged her to work, and she still had to go to her job, getting very little sleep. She usually had breakfast with us the second day after, showing us pictures on her phone of all the beautiful people. I really didn't think much about it, opting to trust her, because I thought she had learned her lesson. The video cameras were still in place, but I had stopped checking them weeks ago. We were slowly working our way back to each other. I had mostly gotten past what she had done, believing she was truly sorry, and knowing what would happen if she slipped again. But pride doesn't go before a fall, complacency does. June called me one day, asking me to bring the kids over for the weekend, me included if I wanted. Charlie had a 2-day event, So we kissed her, wished her luck with the project, even invited her to come to their mansion and spend the night. She opted out, saying she would be too tired to drive the 35 extra miles, told us to have a good time, kissed us all goodbye, and waved until we were out of sight. Harry and June met us at the door. The girls squealed over each other before hurrying away to get into bathing suits and hit the new pool. We didn't worry because we knew Shauna would watch them until we got there. I finally got settled in, changed, and headed for the pool. It was a very unusual experience. June commented on how much my girls had grown. Marissa is going to be a beautiful woman, Jack, and when Darcy matures, she'll be a living doll. I looked at the girls with new eyes, noticing how they have grown up. Shit, now I have to buy a shotgun. The adult women there were nothing you could ignore. June liked to be nude at home, which took Harry's parents a little time to get used to, but for the sake of the girls she had on for her, conservative bikini. Shauna, though, wore an almost invisible bottom, only noticeable because of the contrasting white strips molding into her body. I couldn't help but stare. She was a little cool to me, and I asked June why. You're pretty much an idiot when it comes to the female, Jack. You know that, right? Shauna is pissed because she sent you all kinds of signals when the troubles with Charlie started, and you never responded. I know, with your old-fashioned sense of honor, you wouldn't even touch another woman until you were divorced, but she doesn't understand why you didn't just cut Charlie loose. If I had, then I would have been as bad as Charlie. Besides, I was doing everything with the kids in mind, and I couldn't afford any hint of scandal if I went for full custody. How are you and Charlie getting along? Much better. She doesn't sit around the house now. She exercises, is a lot more conservative over money. She even volunteers, doing work for a major charity. I still haven't moved back in, but we have the occasional sleepovers. I have high hopes for the future. Harry sighed, and June wouldn't look me in the eyes. We need to talk, Jack, after the girls are down for the night. Well, that ruined my mood for the rest of the evening. The girls didn't notice I had gone quiet and rushed off after dinner to see a movie in their 32-seat media room. Shauna was watching them, making sure they got to bed. A quick kiss and they were off. We went into the bar, a room set up like an old-time Western saloon. He got us a couple of beers, and June a glass of the wine she favored. I tasted it, expecting something exceptional for $600 a bottle, but to me, it tasted the same as a $20 bottle. We sat, sipping. I knew better than to rush them. They would get to what they wanted to say in their own good time. June finally started. You know, we contribute heavily to several charities, right? Especially since we can write most of it off. We'd much rather give it to an organization that might actually better the world than let the government waste it. And Charlie has hit us a few times in her new position, and we always send a nice check. I suddenly knew I wasn't going to like where this was going. We sometimes go to the events held for these charities, a sort of show the flag sort of deal. Their reasoning is that if we support it publicly, it may influence others. About a month ago, we attended a black tie dinner at $1,000 a plate, all proceeds going to the charity. Charlie was there, behind the scenes, coordinating everything. She was busy, and we didn't get a chance to speak. I don't think she even realized we were there. The night was almost over, the tables cleared, the orchestra placing for those who wished to dance. We were about to leave when I saw her again. Look. She showed me a picture of Charlie in a dress I'd never seen. It showed of her figure quite well. I wasn't really looking at the dress though, but the guy she was locking lips with. David Duncan, June said, answering the unasked question. He's pretty well off, and a known sex hound. He goes to these things hoping to score, and he likes to seduce married women. He's very good, Jack. He's even tried his lines on me once or twice, before giving up. I used the facilities, went back to Harry, showed him the picture, and we kind of blended into the scenery. Not really that hard in a crowd of 500, the men all dressed in a tux, the women in gowns. We got a few more pictures, all inappropriate poses, some worse than others. That's why we wanted you here. It's not our life, but you are one of our oldest friends, so we decided to tell you. What you do with the information is up to you. We just didn't want you repeating a mistake. Most couples would have never spoken, following some obscure belief about the bearers of bad news and not getting involved, then been all over you with sympathy and support when it went to hell. These, however, were true friends, and the slight variations in their thought patterns compelled them to speak now, to give me information and time to consider choices. If there was some way to retune the rest of the world to their way of thinking, it would probably be a much better place. I nodded, lost in thought. The first betrayal had hurt me pretty bad, but this one, after all we went through and all the promises she made, hit me hard. Without a doubt, our marriage was over. Emotions hadn't hit yet, so I thanked Harry and June, excused myself, and went to bed. I figured I'd stay awake half the night, But when my head hit that pillow, I was out like a light. My eyes popped open at 6, and I lay there, reviewing what I wanted to do. The divorce was back on, without a doubt. I'd call the lawyer Monday, set it back in motion. I wasn't sure when I was going to tell Charlie or the girls, but I wasn't going to let much time pass. Time to move on. I'd go my way, she'd go hers. I would still live in the basement until Marissa graduated, and maybe Darcy would go with me when I moved out. If Charlie had any sense, and judging by her actions she had precious little, she would be agreeable, for the sake of the girls if nothing else. She wasn't known for being agreeable. Time would tell. We spent the next 2 days watching the girls enjoy themselves, although we got into the activities as well. June had decided she wanted horses, so they built a 6-stall barn and filled it up. I was a little afraid of animals that huge, but the ones they had purchased were known for their intelligence and gentle ways. Harry discovered he was allergic to horses, so June, Shauna, the girls, and I saddled up, spending a pleasant morning ambling around. June had a picnic delivered to their gazebo by their favorite pond, a body of water that could just as easily been considered a small lake. Harry met us there with the rods, and I bowed out, fishing for a few hours before going back. The pond was well stocked, and we both believed in catch and release, so we would enjoy the fight the base would give us, before removing the hook as gently as possible and send them back, to grow bigger for the next fight. While we fished, we talked business. I owed my company to Harry. He and June basically insisted I started, all because of something I did for June out of kindness. June suffered from dry skin, not horribly, but enough to be uncomfortable at times. An offhand comment started me thinking. I was a civil engineer, specializing in water systems for multi-story buildings, from office, to industrial, to residential, or a mix of any and all of them. Thinking about her problem, I went into the man cave, when it was still just a workshop, and built what we trademarked the wall. It was one wall of your shower, with padded, protruding nozzles, ever 4 inches from knee-high to neck-high. They would pulse and vibrate while dispensing first soap and water, then rinse water, and finally body lotion. It would wash, massage, and lotion you at one time. A one-stop shop for cleanliness. A side effect was when a woman washed her front, leaning into the vibrating heads hitting strategic locations. It was a very pleasant experience. The pressure and temperature of the water, the intensity of the vibrations, and the heat of the lotion were all controlled from a small touchpad computer on the shower door, with up to 6 programmable preferences for every member of the family. We didn't mention that fact in advertising, but there were a couple of articles in women's magazines gushing about the feeling of, cleanliness it gave. Harry let me install the prototype for June, and she loved it so much she showed it to her friends, which led to a string of women coming over to take showers. Finally, Harry wanted his bathroom back, and told them to buy their own. June called me, with 7 orders, to be delivered as soon as possible. I shocked her when I told her I didn't have the time and inclination to do any more. It was just supposed to be a nice gesture to my friends. This led to a long talk about how much it had cost me to build, and did I have it protected? Harry immediately loaned me his lawyer to get the patents and drew up a charter for a LLC company. We rented a small industrial building, and I hired 2 guys to help build the ones for June's friends. We installed each custom-fit wall into the bathrooms to rave reviews. All their friends were rich, which was a good thing, because they weren't cheap. It wasn't a case of keeping up with the Joneses, more along the lines of keeping up with the Gates and Buffets. Harry and June loaned me $500,000 to get started right, and it just went from there. The first 2 years were pretty much covered by word of mouth and write-ups in magazines. We ended up installing them for a lot of actors, sports figures, singers, and writers, even 2 former first ladies. 5-star hotels started adding them to the luxury suites. One former NFL quarterback was so impressed he had me build a portable unit and put it in the locker room for his old team. It stayed in for 2 months, until the coach had it taken out to stop the fights over who was next. My company built a very large unit capable of holding 5 at a time, and installed it in every locker room of every pro and most college football lockers, then hockey players, basketball teams, just about every major sport that required muscles got in on it. Harry was shrewd enough to make sure the lawyer got international patents, and we sued companies in France and Portugal, ending up with their assets, and Harry wants to take it global after the divorce. And they came up with a way to keep the company out of Charlie's influence. I was okay with that. Not angry enough to screw over her, but angry enough not to reward her either. In fact, after talking to the lawyers, I sold the company to Harry for a nice profit after deducting the debt. I still worked there, as manager, for a very nice salary. It was all very transparent, and when the divorce happened I intended to offer her 60% of our assets in lieu of any other claims, like maintenance and child support. I had already found what the cost would be based on my new salary and had the amount deposited every week into an escrow account for the final split to be used when the kids needed anything. I was giving her the house, an $800,000 gift, after the girls turned 18. So they had a roof over their heads, and I was agreeing to pay all utility bills until then, unless she remarried. My attorney told me I was being way too kind, but when I told him I was thinking of the girls and not Charlie, he shut up. All in all, the deal left her with the house and $2.6 million. It would be hard for her to refuse. She refused. I watched on the surveillance cameras as she was served, sitting at the dining room table to open the envelopes. The first was the petition for divorce. The second were intimate photos of her and her new lover. I left her a little note. I was ready to forgive you, Charlie, thinking you had learned your lesson and would never stray again. Guess I was wrong, huh? It's a lesson for me, once a cheater, always a cheater. It's a very good deal I'm offering, Charlie. You'll come out smelling like a rose. Just sign the papers, and we'll both move on with our lives. There's no need to fight for custody. We'll share it jointly until they reach majority. To do that, I will continue to live in the apartment until Marissa is 18. Then, Darcy can live where she wants. She'll be 16 and can make her own decisions. Read the paperwork. Take them to whatever lawyer you choose. Let them look it over. Please don't be stupid over this. In the end, Charlie, it will do you no good and cost you money you may want to hang on to. Good luck in any future relationship you have. Just don't use me as a reference. I sent the same pics my lawyer has, the ones I gave you, to his wife. Be careful. This is an alienation of affection state, and a good lawyer could easily take most of your newfound post-divorce settlement. Let's hope she isn't that sharp. I felt no need to sign it. Charlie begged, Charlie pleaded, but Charlie got nowhere. Please, Charlie, don't recite chapter and verse of excuses from the cheater's handbook. You wanted someone else and you got him. I refuse to be your fallback plan. It's over. Let's not make this hard on the girls. Sign the papers, and in a few more years, when the kids are old enough, I'll be gone, and we'll just have to see each other for the weddings and child baptizing. She cried. Then she got angry. Her lawyer was a pretty sharp cookie, and when she saw what I offered, her advice was to take the money and have a good life, explaining that Charlie came to her because she was one of the best, and the best weren't cheap. I could end up with more of the settlement than you would, and think, would it be worth it? Don't reduce your quality of life for a lost cause. Charlie, you cheated, twice, and he has documentation on both. This isn't a no-fault state. He could go for adultery if you push things, and you might end up with a lot less and still have to pay me. Take the deal. She countersued for mental cruelty and claimed I was having my own affairs with Shauna and Brenda, Bob's ex-wife. Brenda threatened to sue her for slander and defamation of character. Shauna showed up at her door and told her if she didn't stop, she would screw up on a regular basis. It won't actually be me, bitch. I still have a lot of friends from my old unit, and trust me when I tell you this, we're a bunch of mean bitches. I won't even go into what the guys would do to you. I see a lot of muggings in your future. You may disappear. I hear they pay premium prices for good-looking white bitches in third-world countries, and one of my guys has connections. He'd be happy to take care of you. Think with your head instead of your coochie, woman, while you still have choices. She had Charlie backed into a wall by then, her arm against her throat. One more thing. When this is over, I'm going after him. He's a good man. One that would have never lasted in my old world, and that attracts me. A good, gentle, solid man is just what I'm looking for. I'm still young enough to breed, and I bet we'd make adorable little chocolate babies. Only warning, bitch. She walked off, leaving Charlie gasping, looking at the spreading stain on the front of her jeans. I didn't hear the story until much later. She stopped the actions the next day. I was surprised at work a few weeks later when a woman I didn't know showed up at my office, asking for a few minutes of my time, saying it had to do with my divorce. I had her brought to my office after turning on the video and audio. I used it sometimes when in negotiation. I found vendors and customers sometimes forget things when it comes to the contracts. She was a very attractive woman, probably 10 years older, but looking my age. I rose and shook her hand, walking over to the couch besides the conference table. I wanted to put her at ease. I'm sorry for showing up unannounced, Mr. Sayers. I'm Barbara Duncan. I believe your wife knows my husband. It clicked. Her husband was the one screwing Charlie. I took her hand. I find myself in an awkward position, Mrs. Duncan, having to apologize for my wife's action. She shook her head. I'm pretty sure it wasn't your doing, and I know it wasn't mine. It was two adults, both, from what I found, with a history of cheating. They probably seduced each other. What I came to ask for is a favor. It seems you have pictures and testimony I could use in my divorce. Would you consider sharing it? Give me the name of your lawyer, and I'll send it over." She sighed. "I don't have one yet." When it hit the fan, he emptied the accounts, leaving me just enough to keep the house and our son in clothes. I didn't work, and my future looks bleak. Once again, I found myself in the unusual position of cleaning up a mess my wife made. I dialed a number, asking her to wait. "John, I got another client for you. The a-hole's wife. Give me a time, and I'll send her over." "And John, I'm paying. Maybe you should give me a discount." "What? Thought so. You greedy pig. Here's her number. Text her when you're available." Barbara looked shocked and I grinned. "Don't worry, he's really good at his job, and I can afford the cost. It's the least I can do. You don't know me, but if there's anything else I can help you with, ask." She said, lip quivering. "Please don't cry. Please don't." She started crying. I gave her some tissue, let her cry for a bit, and thought, Brenda was in right now, and if anyone knew what she was going through, it was her. I called, and she came to the office. "Brenda, Barbara, you two have something in common. My wife has slept with both your husbands. I'm going out for just a minute." I gave them 15 minutes. When I walked back and both women tackled me to the couch, and then both kissed me. Didn't see that coming. I sat glowing, a different shade of lipstick on each cheek. "I've been telling Barb what a nice guy you are, and how when the divorce is final I'm coming after you. Don't look so shocked. You know you're my hero. Now focus. Barb needs a job until her divorce is hashed out. Seems she is just perfect for the new position you've been talking about. She has a degree in international business relations and speaks French, Italian, and German. Looks like I found your new international marketing director. You can thank me with a big bonus in my next check. And remember, I'm your head accountant, so I know how much you can pay her. Don't make me adjust it." Charlie literally had a hissy fit. "What's up with you? This some kind of revenge thing? Treating me like shit while you give those bitches all kinds of supporting goodies? Man, you talk about pissed off. I had hit my absolute limit with her. Charlie, you need to shut up. You need to shut up right now. You listening? Because if you don't, the offer comes off the table, and I'll make you fight for every bone. You think I imagined when I married you that I would be spending time propping up women whose lives you destroyed? Hell, no I didn't. This is all on you, Charlie, and I'm done. Don't speak to me anymore. Contact my lawyer if you need something. Don't worry about the girls. They can tell me if they want or need something. You listening to what I'm saying?" She had gone back to crying. "But honey, I'm sure." I talked right over her. "I'll tell you what you can be sure of. You can be sure that the divorce is going through. You can be sure that before the ink dries on the paper, I'll be looking for someone else. The girls are going to need a positive female role model. So go off and screw another marriage, or 2, or 3, up. Send the women to me when you're done destroying the life they thought they had, and I'll do my best to put them back together. Maybe they can form a club or something. I'm sure they would let me be an honorary member. Lord knows I've got the experience. Goodbye, Charlie." And I mean that literally. I think my rage frightened her, because she backed up into a corner, eyes wide, and didn't make a sound. I didn't even close the door when I left. The girls hated it. I tried to shield them, but they found out somehow. They went 3 weeks without seeing their mother before I talked them into spending the weekend. She's still your mother. She didn't betray you, and she still loves you. I'm sure it's been killing her not seeing you. I know it will be hard, and after a little if you don't want to stay, come back down. Do it for the family." Darcy, her 11-year-old eyes looking ancient, sighed. "We'll go. But you're wrong, Dad. She betrayed us just as much as she did you, and cheated us out of normal family. It will never be the same. We do stuff with you, with her, but we'll never do them together. Ever again share collective memories. Love you, Dad." She gave me a huge hug and walked the longest 26 steps of her young life. Damn it. When did children get so smart and so world-weary? I might have to check on a therapist for them, for all of us. It took 11 months and cost her about 600 grand from the settlement before she gave up. She asked for an hour together before she would sign the papers, and I called her. "What could you possibly have to say that would change anything? If you're sorry, I accept your apology. Otherwise, sign the papers. I'm not going through another instance of drama." Darcy was 12 and a half now, blossoming into a rare beauty. Marissa, now almost 15, looked like a 20-year-old model. People still came over for pool and man cave parties, and when the boys showed up, the mothers were like hawks circling their nest. There would be no lost chicks on their watch. Charlie never offered to come. I was still paying all the bills for the house, and would until the youngest went off to college. I had changed the petition slightly. The house, instead of going to Charlie per the first divorce settlement offer, would be sold, the profit split evenly. Charlie still came out with enough to live comfortably if she was careful with her money. The ink wasn't dry on my divorce papers when, true to her word, Brenda came after me. I stopped her as gently as I could. I'd love to, Brenda, but you work for me, and if we didn't click it could get very, very awkward. I'll quit. You'll get my resignation on your email in about 5 seconds. I had to laugh. You love your job, and while you're really good, no one is going to pay you what I do. I could marry the bank. You could, but it would be a long time down the road, if it ever happens. Please, stop. She sighed. Well, I had to try. And I wore a thong today, just for you. Damn, those things are uncomfortable. I looked at her, trying to decide between being shocked and laughing. She grinned at my expression, reached under her skirt and shimmied 3 times, stepping out of them and handing a scrap of black lace to me. Here, a memento of what you turned down. Damn, it feels good to get that thing off me. Think about me the rest of the day, knowing I'm commando under this skirt. She twirled at the door, the loose skirt billowing out. I got a glimpse of some very nice-looking butt cheeks as she went out the door, smiling. I put the thong in my desk drawer. Barbara took her shot. I'm not interested in a relationship, I just need to be laid. Seriously laid. It's been almost a year, and I'm tired of buying batteries. Help a girl out here. I knew she was flying to France the next morning. Keep control, Barb. Maybe you'll find a Frenchman and fall in love. Or lust. Either way, there's a Pierre of Jean-Claude out there just pining away, searching for you. She sighed. Good thing I talked to Brenda. I'm not wearing a thong. Then again, I'm not wearing anything under this dress. Give you any ideas? Lots and lots, none of them good. Leave me alone. I'm still dealing with the fact that I'm really unmarried. Brenda found a guy, another accountant, and they're still crunching numbers. How many minutes can he last? How many orgasms he can give her per session? So far, it was adding up. Barbara took my suggestion literally, found a Frenchman, and moved to Nice, where she heads up the European division of the company. I stumbled along for about 9 months. I dated a few women I met through friends and various social functions, found out my equipment still worked, but other than physical pleasure, nothing much happened. Harry and Jane watched over me, as best they knew how. I was over a few times with the girls, and we had a decent time. Shauna had left them, saying that while she loved them and Star, it was time to move on. I was a little disappointed, and they grinned. 13 months after the divorce, Charlie got engaged to some guy she met through her volunteer work. The charity she had worked with, after the news of her affair and divorce came out, asked her if she didn't think she would be more useful elsewhere, and she took the hint and left. I met him a few times at the mailbox, and he seemed a decent sort. Best of all, he had been single when they hooked up, so she didn't break up a marriage. I wondered how truthful she was about her past, but it was none of my business. The girls liked him. He had a sense of humor and didn't try to come off as a father figure. He would sometimes take them to the movies or out to eat while their mother worked. Oddly, I didn't feel threatened and was happy they were adjusting. Then they came home one day looking sad, and over the evening, it came out. Josh was out of their lives. He had broken off the engagement. I asked if they knew why. Seriously, Dad? It's Mom. What do you think happened? I had become comfortable enough that I didn't shake in revulsion if I ran into Charlie, could speak to her civilly, but I didn't encourage her. I'd long ago had all the surveillance equipment removed, because it just wasn't my business anymore, but I have to admit, I was tempted to turn it back on when Josh appeared. Did she still make the faces and sounds as she did when we were intimate? Did she try harder with him? Thankfully, I never felt a temptation. 17 months after the divorce, I came home to see an old friend sitting on my couch. Shauna had come into town and stopped off to see the girls. Marissa was 16, and I had gotten her a car for the milestone, and she was telling her all about it. Never expected her to pick a 4-wheel drive Jeep, but it was a lot safer than most of the cars teen girls wanted. So I went along. She and Darcy were very popular at school, and there was always some friends underfoot, and this way, their posses could travel together. I thought later her choice had a lot to do with Shauna when she was younger. She drove a vehicle a lot like the one she picked. Darcy came bouncing up to me. Dad, guess what? Shauna wants to take us camping. Star is going to go with us. Can we go? That was a surprise. Darcy was about as girly as you could get, and I couldn't see her sleeping on the ground or getting dirty. Shauna sat there grinning. I grinned back. I haven't seen you in almost 2 years, and this is how you come back? Kidnapping my children? Leaving me abandoned? Her grin got bigger. You can come. In fact, I'll probably need help. Darcy is allowed 2 friends, Marissa 2, and Star 2. Wrangling 9 girls from 10 to 16 might be more than I can deal with. I doubt there is anything you can't deal with. You'll have them organized like they were in boot camp. I don't think you'll have any issues. Come with us, Daddy. We'll need someone to carry stuff and fix the meals. You don't expect us to do it, now do you? We'll be on vacation. My older daughter was smirking when she finished. I'm detecting a conspiracy here. All right, make plans. I have a massive backlog of time coming. It might be good to burn some. You gonna bring that white thong bikini, Shauna? Shauna the warrior actually blushed. Not this trip. I'll probably be a little more PG. After all, it's a bunch of young girls. I don't want them seeing you perving on me all weekend. My turn to blush. Set it up. I'll try not to perv around my daughters. They giggled, and I went off to order pizza, while they put their heads together over Darcy's laptop, looking at high-end camping gear. I had a feeling this was going to cost me a bundle. Shauna came over every 2 or 3 days right up until the trip, to see what they had bought and whether they needed to bring it. She made them take down and put up the 3 tents until they could do it blindfolded. Star was often with her, already displaying she had inherited her parents' brains and her mother's good looks. I hadn't actually talked to Charlie in a couple of months. She'd had several men over, always sending the girls to me for the nights she had dates. Couldn't help thinking she wasn't much of a role model right now, but the girls were pretty level-headed about it. Then one day she called, wanting to talk to me about the girls. My alarm system went off. This could not be good news. I met her at her front door. She went right to what was on her mind. Stop poisoning my girls against me. I'm sick to death of hearing about Shauna. She can do this. She can do that. She's blah blah blah. If you're banging that bitch, keep it away from my girls. It took me a second to get my voice, and a little longer than that to get calm enough to sound reasonable. First, I laughed. This from a woman who's had a parade of lovers in the last few months? You think the girls are stupid enough to think you're playing backgammon all night? Damn, what a hypocrite you are, Charlie. By the way, I'm not banging her. But you know what? If I was, it would still not be your concern. I've tried to stay out of your business, Charlie, so stay out of mine. You look like shit. The term rode hard and put up what comes to mind. Get your butt back to the gym. Have your hair done. Take care of yourself, for the girls at least. Anything else on your mind? Well then, have a super sparkly shiny day and leave me alone. I left her shocked and in tears, and it iced the cake that Shauna drove up just then, and I surprised the hell out of her by grabbing her and giving her a hard kiss. She was shocked at first, but before I knew it, that hard body was pressed up against me and her tongue was halfway down my throat. We broke to the sound of clapping and a slamming door. The clapping was from the girls, who had rushed out when they saw Shauna pull up. It was kind of fun to watch Miss Super in control blush. Why did you do that? I smiled. Because I've always to, and believe me, it exceed every fantasy I've ever had about you. And honestly, I wanted to do it for the shock value to certain people. And I'd really like to try it again, just to make sure the feeling I got isn't just a one-off. She grabbed me, pulling me to her as she kissed me again. When we broke, I surprised her by nipping her neck, leaving a small hickey. The girls dragged her inside, giggling uncontrollably, as I followed them and started the grill. They came out, bringing the salads, and I plated their steaks and baked potatoes. She would rub her neck now and again, watching me through hooded eyes. They rushed back in after dining, leaving me the mess to deal with. It was dark by the time I was done, and Shauna come back out alone. A 5-minute make-out session commenced. Her fingers traced the front of my shorts, and I nearly lost it when she grabbed my erection. "Nice," was all she said as she turned to leave. She paused at the gate. "You shouldn't have kissed me, because now that I know you want me to. It's on, big boy, and you better be ready. Don't try running." Does it look like I'm running? I had shot across the yard, grabbed her again, surprising her by picking her up off her feet, giving her one more kiss and a swat on her butt cheek. She jumped and smirked. "That was nice. Please, sir, may I have another?" I think I swallowed 3 bugs as my mouth hung open, watching that magnificent hips sway across the driveway. The girls were all over me when I got inside. "Back off, babies. I have no idea what I'm doing or where we're going with this. Let me try to process this before we talk about it." They smirked and walked around humming the wedding march for the rest of the week. I checked and double-checked everything on the list Shauna had given me. How could something that took this long to coordinate be fun? Shauna has Star and her 2 friends in her 4-wheel drive. Marissa had her 2 friends, plus Darcy and her buddies in hers. It was pretty packed. Me? I was driving one of the company truck, the bed loaded down with the gear. Support vehicle, according to Shauna. It took 4 hours to get where we were going, but it was worth it. We were completely isolated. It would take 30 minutes just to drive to the bathhouses. If they had to go before then, they would have to do a bear imitation. Shauna took over, barking orders, and 4 tents sprouted from the ground. I was tasked with getting the foodstuff organized into the bear-proof containers, something that didn't make me warm and fuzzy. The coolers would be locked in the vehicles at night, and Shauna had some bear repellent she sprayed liberal doses of around the site and the vehicles. Then I had to assemble the charcoal grill we'd carried with us. By lunchtime, we were squared away. Lunch was cold cuts and sodas, the girl giggling and eyeing the lake. While they donned bathing suits, I drove back to the marina and got the keys to the largest pontoon boat they had and took an hour's worth of instruction. It was huge and was supposed to handle 18 adults, so I figured 9 girls and 2 adults wouldn't tax it. I drove back to see 9 girls and 1 woman lying around on blankets in bathing suits, soaking up the sun. I looked at them, seeing how grown my babies were, knowing my time with them was growing shorter. Marissa would be off to college in 2 years, Darcy not far behind. My nest would truly be empty. Then I saw Shauna, lying on her stomach in her string thong, top undone, as the blood diverted from my head. I had the thought that maybe it wouldn't be so empty if I followed my heart. I sat down beside her, and she murmured a greeting, handing me some lotion and telling me to do her back. Her skin was surprisingly soft and supple. I did her back, and she flipped that long black hair out of her eyes, grinned, and told me to do the rest of her. You have no idea how badly I'd love to do that, but we have an audience, so I think I'll let you do it. She looked over, and 9 girls were watching, the older ones grinning. She sighed and sat up and tied her top. It was almost as nerve-wracking watching her lotion herself as it would have been had I got to do it. I decided pretty quickly a dip in the cool waters of the lake was just what I needed. Shauna smirked and Marissa and her friends grinned as I dove into the lake. I cooked for them while they played. Shauna had brought some games that required a lot of physical activity, and they screamed and ran until they were ready to drop. We fed them, and then hauled them back to the bathhouses. I took my shower, and then had to sit outside on the bench forever while 10 females went through whatever rituals that prepared them for bed. They were nodding in the vehicles, and we almost had to carry some of them to tents. Every girl followed Star's lead when she kissed me goodnight and called me Uncle Jack. Every girl followed suit, and I got 9 very nice, very sweet kisses. Then Star did the same thing to Shauna, and soon every girl was giving Aunt Shauna a kiss. We expected them to stay up, but the exercise had served its purpose, and they were all out like a light in 30 minutes, and every tent had a snorer. Shauna and I walked down to the lake with a couple of chairs and sat in the moonlight, enjoying the quiet. I'd slipped a couple of bottles of wine into one of the coolers, and we shared a bottle, drinking out of plastic cups. Shauna must have had a pretty tiring day, because she nodded off after half the second cup was downed. She was a solid chunk of muscle, and there was no way I would be able to carry her. I shook her gently, but she didn't respond. I bent over to talk into her ear and not wake up the girls, but the opportunity was too much, so I nibbled her neck, planting gentle kisses down to her shoulder blades, exposed in her short little sundress. She moaned slightly and I felt her shift. She turned her head and kissed me, slowly, gently, savoring the moment. She finally pulled back, smiling and stroking my cheek. "You can wake me up like that anytime you want, honey. Now help me up, we need to hit the rack. Those girls will have us up at the crack of dawn." She held out her hand and didn't let go as we walked back to the tent. I stopped outside, suddenly realizing there was only one tent. Shauna saw me hesitate and tugged gently. "It's just for sleep, Jack. I'm pretty vocal when I get started, and I have no intention of damaging 9 young minds. Now come on." I was even more surprised to see a double-height queen-size air mattress with 2 sleeping bags open and zipped together. "I sleep on the left side," she said, as she turned out the lantern. I heard a rustling sound and realized it was her dress, hitting the floor. She had on a tiny pair of white bikini panties and nothing else. She slid in and threw the cover back. "You coming?" I didn't even hesitate, dropping my shorts and sliding in beside her in my boxers. She gave me a quick little kiss, turned over and spooned to me, dragging my arm over her tummy, snuggled until she was comfortable, and was out instantly. It took me a while because I had to will the iron bar in my boxers into melting, but eventually sleep found me. I woke up to giggling, still spooned to her. Shauna sighed, arching back into me while keeping my hand firmly where it was, before giggling. She reached down and grabbed my morning wood. If we were alone, I have ways of making that thing deflate, but surrounded by young girls like we are, you're on your own. But hurry up, I swear I can hear stomachs rumbling. We need to prepare breakfast. I stumbled out a few minutes later and Darcy showed me the primitive bathroom just behind the tree line that I didn't know about. It was rude but adequate, and Shauna had the foresight to bring a large container of water and sanitizing soap. I was pretty good on a grill, but Shauna took over breakfast, delegating things to the older girls. Soon the sound of sausage frying filled the air, while I chopped peppers, onion, and ham for omelets. Shauna brought the biggest cast iron frying pan I had ever seen, heated oil, and made the best pancakes I had ever tasted from buckwheat flour and fresh blueberries. We gorged, and then Shauna made them all help clean up, wash the dishes, pick up the trash, pack away the utensils and food, until it looked like we'd never been here. Shauna pulled out a couple of rods and walked down to the lake with every girl in tow, and then taught each to fish. There were plenty of small bream in the cove, so everybody caught something. Endless pictures were made, and the girls told me in no uncertain terms we would be visiting somewhere like Academy or Dick's very soon. We lazed around until nearly lunch, when we drove back to the marina. Shauna had made them wear sneakers and cover their swimsuits with shorts and tees. They thought it was because we took them to lunch at the marina restaurant for lunch. Oddly enough, they featured Italian cuisine, and plates of spaghetti, ravioli, huge meatballs, and other sundry dishes got shared. Little girls could really pack it away. We had them walk down to the piers to admire the boats. There were a lot of squeals when they understood the big one was for them, and they thundered on board, moaning when Shauna made them put on life vests. "We have a student driver," she said, grinning at me. "Best not to take any chances." We putted around slowly until everyone got comfortable. The jackets and clothes came off, and it was wall-to-wall swimsuits. The older girls got a lot of attention from passing boaters, and when one drunk guy screamed, "Show your tits," I thought Shauna was going to go overboard after then. The girls just laughed. "Relax, honey. I was a hormonal teen once, and you were too, a lot more recently than I was. They're just having fun. If they come close again, though, they're all yours." She thought about that for a second and walked to the after deck. I heard whoops echoing across the lake, and she came back grinning, adjusting her top. I never said a word. We anchored in a cove, and I uncovered the best feature on the boat. A sliding board that shot you out into the water off the side of the boat. A little pump keeping water on the board to make it easier. Soon they were going off 2 by 2, screaming as they went airborne. One little girl hung back, and it came out she couldn't swim. The others were sensitive enough to offer to stop, a pretty mature thing for kids so young. But Shauna saved the day. She took the girl to the back, and after a few minutes she came back, wearing a life vest. Shauna climbed the ladder with her, and they went off together. I don't know who was screaming more, Shauna or Vicky. The cove was pretty shallow, with a nice little beach, and we bumped the shore when they got tired, tying it off. We scrounged firewood and pulled out the cooler, and soon they were roasting wieners and marshmallows, sipping on sodas. Shauna had Vicky off to the side, talking to her quietly, and a few minutes later I looked up as Vicky dog paddled by me. We sat on the boat later, feet dangling off the boat, side by side, when I reached over and gave her a soft kiss on the cheek. Her smile lit up the twilight. What was that for? For helping Vicky. You're going to be a super mother. Tears sprang to her eyes and she dove off the boat, swimming out into the cove, looking out at the channel. When she finally came in, I helped her wrangle the girls, cleaning up our mess, making sure the fire was out, and we slowly motored back to the dock. Did I do something to hurt your feelings? If I did, you know I didn't mean to, and I apologize. She brushed my cheek, smiling a tender smile. You didn't say anything wrong, honey. You just gave me a compliment no one ever has before. I just didn't know how to process it. She leaned against me all the way back, holding my arm. I could not remember the last time I was so content. The kids moaned when we got back, until we told them we had it for 3 more days. They were still babbling excitedly when we stopped for showers on the way back to camp. We had a light dinner that the girls fixed, insisting Shauna and I relax. So we sat in camp chairs, getting pampered. Shauna talked about her new job. She was part owner of a security service, along with 3 of her fellow veterans, and seemed to be successful, though she didn't care much for the erratic hours and travel as much as she thought. I told her about selling the company, surprising her. It didn't bother me. The whole thing started when I was just trying to help a friend. Harry and June more or less forced me into it. They're good, loyal friends, but I really didn't enjoy it that much, and money didn't really mean that much to me. I just wanted enough to provide a good life for my family, and later just for my girls. She sighed and held my hand. I know you don't really show it, but Charlie hurt you more than you let show. I was married once myself. I loved the guy, and I thought he was my life partner, until I got back from a deployment and found out he was divorcing me for what I thought was a good friend, and she was 6 months pregnant. At least he had the decency to wait until I came home, but it still hurt. I was a little shocked. She had never mentioned it before, and I found it sad. Charlie had taught me a lot about channeling pain, so I could understand. We lazed in the chairs until dinner was served. I was more than glad my girls had learned to use a grill, because most of the others were clueless. Shauna and I washed up, while the girls sat around the fire, singing as one of Marissa's friends played guitar. It didn't sound bad, sitting in the dark, with no one else around to judge your abilities. We tried to wear the pontoon out, and the girls were adamant that for both birthday presents combined that we get one of our own. I did not fight the suggestion at all. Shauna and I shared a bed for 3 more nights, sleeping in our underwear. The last day, the girls were almost frantic, trying to cram as much fun into the day as possible. It left them so worn they dropped like rocks right after dinner, not even trying to sit up around the fire. Shauna kissed me and said, "Come to bed, and I'll let you finish the massage." I was in the bed before she could finish talking. I don't have the willpower to wait any longer. You need to love me now. My body was more than willing, but I had enough brain cells still getting blood to ask about the girls. They're exhausted. You could probably parade a brass band through right now, and they wouldn't even roll over. Plus, we're going to be quiet and gentle. I'll rock your world when we're alone. Now drop those boxers. I touched, I rubbed, as she sighed in appreciation. It was nice and slow. We fell back limply, exhausted. She snuggled in even tighter and drifted off. I could have sworn I heard her say, "Love you," but I couldn't be sure. I lay there in that tent, in the middle of nowhere surrounded by little girls, and realized I was the happiest I had been in a very, very long time, and went asleep smiling. The girls got us up, and after a tremendous kiss, we dressed and went out to face the world. Marissa, Darcy, and the rest of the girls had smug grins, and I knew there were no secrets in a tent. I looked at Shauna, enjoying the blush, as we cooked our last meal. After everything was packed, we looked around to make sure we left the camp better than we found it, and left, taking memories home that would last a lifetime. In a move I'm sure was planned, Marissa drove Shauna's SUV, another girl drove hers, and Shauna rode with me. We drove, holding hands, feeling no need to speak. An hour from home, Shauna finally spoke. I've thought about this a lot. For years, truth be told. We could go home, date, dance around how we feel about each other, but I'm going to cut to the chase and give you some options. You will love me. You will marry me. You will give me some more children to love besides Star and our girls. And this is an absolute must. You will spend the rest of your life with me. If you object to any of this, I will get into my car when we get back, drive off, and you will never see me again. Oh, and by the way, I love you. What are your thoughts on the matter? Well, let me think. Okay, I've thought. We'll go to the jeweler's tomorrow, find you a ring. Then we, or rather you, will go house hunting. I refuse to start married life in my ex's basement, so the sooner you find our home, the quicker we can set up housekeeping. You might want to bring the girls in consultation when you narrow your choices. Agreed? Oh, and just to make it formal, Shauna Hunter, will you marry me? She just sat there for a few seconds, before the tears started. Then the tears gave way to a smug look. She texted someone and told me to pull over, right now. I thought the girl driving Marissa's Jeep was going to wreck. She pulled over so fast. Shauna jumped from the truck, raced around and pulled me out before I could get out on my own, and as 9 girls danced and screamed around us, gave me the most satisfying kiss of my life. Marissa happened to still be holding her phone, and I looked down to the message. Operation a success. Well done, troops. I looked at her, and she grinned while flaming red. Oops, you weren't supposed to see that, she said, as she hugged me again. I sighed as I closed out my computer, thinking, I was 60 today, my last day of working. I was retiring, I had made plenty of money, and it was time. Darcy turned out to be a whiz at math and business. So when she got her MBA, she started working for Harry, coming over 3 years ago to learn the business from the ground up, before she took over as CEO of a global operation. Marissa followed in my original footsteps, getting an engineering degree, specializing in bridge building, a career that took her all over the world. She had found a life partner, and they had adopted 2 little girls, my only grandchildren so far. Darcy was still married to her job, although she seemed really close to an engineer she had met through her sister. My musings were interrupted when my wife came in, our twin daughters in tow. They were going to graduate high school soon, and had chose different colleges, wanting to live life as an individual for a change. Shauna was right as always, when she told Charlie we would make beautiful chocolate babies. Shauna retired from the field the day we married, and took over the management of her company before selling her share to others when she found she was pregnant. Our company were almost their only clients. Harry's empire had become huge, and there were many times when information they uncovered altered business decisions significantly. She helped me pack up the pictures on my desk, stopping at one of our wedding photos, one of her with her bridal party. June as matron of honor, and 9 bridesmaids, 3 16-year-olds, 3 13-year-olds, and 3 10-year-olds, all in their floor-length gowns, looking elegant and beautiful, holding up their gowns, showing combat boots, holding a sign. Operation successful. We were retiring to our house on the lake, the same lake we camped at all those years ago. There were 2 huge pontoons and a speedboat tied to the docks, and all the kids from that trip were frequent visitors, bringing their own families, telling the tale of the operation of the lake, as they called it. I doubted we would have much privacy, but that was all right. Whatever happened to Charlie? Not that I cared other than how it affected my children, but she got the house. To say she was not pleased was a very fair statement, but she soon realized her venting was falling on deaf ears and gave it up. What really burned her is that a house came up for sale a block over, and Shauna decided that was the one we would start our family in. $500,000 later, she had a show house that was featured in a magazine. It had a full-size in-ground pool and a hot tub, which we enjoyed until we almost wore it out the first year. Custody was never an issue, because the girls were walking distance from each house, though they chose to stay with us most of the time, especially after their sisters were born. After all, they were almost grown by then. Charlie remarried, twice. The first crashed after 2 years, because, surprise, surprise, she got caught cheating. Luckily, she was smart enough to get a prenup, so she was protected. Just for the fun of it, Brenda and Barb tracked the wife down and offered her a job. I hear the second one is an open arrangement, and they use the basement for a playroom. So maybe she got what she wanted so many years ago. We see her every once in a while, and she doesn't speak, still carrying a grudge. Time has not been as kind as it could have been to her, and her age is starting to show. Old habits die hard, I guess, and she still likes the mall better than the gym. Dad, hurry up. If we start now, we can still get an hour or 2 on the lake. I grinned, picked up my box, and walked out with my family to start the best part of my journey through life. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.